Good to see you guys. So to start, Morgana, I want to start with you because you're part of a project that your friend wrote this character, and you have to kind of honor what Abigail did while working with Abigail. What was the process like for you to kind of navigate making the character your own, but still like honoring Abigail's work in front of her?
I mean, it was very easy for me knowing that these characters were initially written knowing that Abby and I were going to be playing them together. We've talked about like the hilarious nature that so many of these situations, although not in a literal sense, were taken from a lot of inspiration of conversations we've had with one another. Everything from me thirsting and romanticizing a burger to me telling Abby not to devour certain people that she's had crushes on have absolutely come from real life situations. So, in a lot of ways, both of us are kind of Belle and Faye. I think that both characters, there are elements of both of us from our conversations and from, sort of things that we've both been through that have seeped into both characters. So in a way, this became very easy for me because once we got into rehearsals, we could talk at a very real level with one another about what direction we want to take these characters in and how much of ourselves we want to infuse into it. We really, we got to rehearse more with these characters than I think any project I've had in my life. Especially like given the time frame from when Abby originally wrote it and we actually got to start shooting it. So, there was a lot of exploration there, and the pressure was definitely off because we had just talked about it so much. I don't think a day went by that we weren't like talking about Dex and talking about these characters in the storyline. Usually, when one of us would wake up, the other one would go to sleep because she's
Mm.
on British time. So before I would go to bed, Abby would be waking up. We'd talk about Dex. I would wake up. She'd be going to bed. We'd talk about Dex again. So there were a lot of discussions.
Mm.
I love that. And Abby, you get to, see this whole thing come to life. And like I got to be on set and see you guys working on this firsthand. But when you are now at the point where you're talking to press and the premiere is coming up and you get to have these experiences where other people are taking in what you've created, what for you is the most exciting part of that journey with the movie?
Well, it's a journey that makes me very grateful. Really, it's exciting in the sense of like being given something really beautiful and precious. Because as an artist, when someone else takes one's work seriously
Mhm.
enough, not only in the sense of sitting down and watching it and saying oh, I liked or didn't like it or engaged with it or had a response to it, but also I was struck when I was having my first costume fitting with Brianna Quick that she had gone away and really thought about what I'd written and like really digested it and presented a plan for how she wanted to contribute to it. It's a very beautiful and a very humbling experience when people take the time and put in the work to help bring a sort of a dream to life. And I mean a dream in the sense of like a vision that I had in my head. And I wrote some words on a screen, and then we're sitting in a restaurant, and then I wrote the words oak smoked California hickory burger, and somebody designs a burger. I wrote chocolate volcano cake, and Vivian baked 7 chocolate volcano cakes to use as the props, and like she designed them, you know. So it's a for me, it's 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 really beautiful when somebody cares.
But yeah, and you guys had such a fun and open set. Because I do remember very vividly, Morgana, you taking a bite of that burger and instantly being like, I can't be eating this much of this burger in every single shot that you had to take. Like I just remember you being like, no, I've made a mistake. But when you are on that set and everyone is just so kind of inviting I don't know why I said inviting like that, but inviting and open, and they want you guys to be able to try things while also like still getting the shots that you guys need. What for you both was your favorite day when you guys were kind of whatever scene it was or whatever it was? Do you have a favorite day from filming?
I think honestly, it was the first day of filming for me. It was the biggest one. I had the most stressful scene in the film for me up first. The
Mm.
very first shot of the film, the very first scene was the one I was most worried about.
Mm.
And once that felt successful, I got the rush that this is going to go great. This is going to go fine. But it was also the energy of the room. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. You know, this entire project started because we wanted to make something. And we were tired of waiting. We've been playing the waiting game. We still play the waiting game in our careers. We'll always be playing the waiting games on waiting for producers, casting directors, etc., to place us in things in which we can show off why we got into this industry in the first place. And I think the first day on set, once we got there, we realized so many people on set felt the same way in their respective arts. We were there because we wanted to act in something. And they were there because they wanted to light something. They wanted to decorate something. They wanted to shoot something in a specific style. Everyone there seemed to have something to prove in their specific creative realm. We got to bring in a lot of people we already knew. On top of bringing in like Brandon Rogers is a frequent collaborator of mine. I got to bring in like my makeup artist from my sets with him. Our still photographer was a friend of ours. So we had a lot of familiar faces on set who we just knew, like, you're in the industry for the right reasons. You're here because you genuinely want to create something memorable. And the energy on set that day was not just clocking into work. It was like, okay, we're all here because we want to make this project together. And it was a testament to why this film is being done in the first place.
Yeah. I think for me, it was day 3 because I didn't mention this at the time, but I actually had a really bad toothache while we were shooting. One of my teeth was really badly infected. And so I was actually in incredible pain for the first 2 days of filming and was just like, I'm here to be a professional. Like, I can't just be like, ow, 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 my tooth all the time. I wanted to, like, I was going home from set back to my hotel and just like crying because I was in so much pain. But by day 3, Trenton, the producer, Trenton Waterson, very kindly got me like the right balance of painkillers and stuff and like antibiotics. Finally, we kind of, because I was also in the United States where like I don't have, you know, health insurance and you can't get the same over-the-counter stuff in this country as you can in Britain. So by day 3, I finally got the right balance of painkillers and stuff to kind of be present in the room. And so that was the day where I like first started enjoying it, because for day 1 and 2, I was just like, oh God, this is so painful. And also the irony, I'm a vampire with a toothache.
So if you need to boil that story down, she loved day 3 because she was on so many drugs.
Like the day that you weren't in excruciating pain, your favorite.
Yeah.
Shocking that was your favorite day. Yeah,
that was a nice day.
Well, I also love, Abby, that you are, for all of the girlhood stuff from last summer with Barbie, I also think girlhood extends to these nerdy things that we all love. So you've collected now, this would be the third thing, because you have space with Star Wars, you got fantasy with Game of Thrones, and now you have vampires, which I feel like is very girlhood coded, and people don't like to talk about that. But when you are kind of now building a career for yourself in these nerdy-ish spaces, what for you is the next kind of avenue that you would want to take, because you've nailed a lot of them at this point?
What goes in your Thanos glove next?
Yeah. What's your next Infinity Stone?
I'm interested in playing action focused roles. That was something that I enjoyed a great deal about my time on House of the Dragon, is that Shariko is a physical character. She jumps in, she fights. And I have the skills to do that. I can ride horses, I can shoot guns, I can do bow and arrow, I can do hand-to-hand combat, I can scuba dive, I can skydive. Like, I have all these physical skills. So I'm interested in leaning into that kind of casting a little bit more. Something I've said in interviews about House of the Dragon is one of the reasons I love Shariko so much is a lot of the roles that are written for trans femme actors are aimed at actors who are like childhood transitioners and who are also former runway models. And that's not me. Like, I didn't get my start modeling. I got my start doing Shakespeare and sword fighting, right? And also, like, I'm 6'1" and I like working out. So I'm interested in moving into those kinds of roles. There's a few things that I've got my eye on that I can't say what they are. Yeah, I'm interested in moving into that kind of space. Any space where I can like kick ass is a space that I'm interested in going.
I love that. And Morgan, I wanted to ask you, so like, what I think is so interesting about this movie is it is smaller, but you get to have these kind of very intimate one-on-one conversations with other characters. And for you as an actor, when you are given something like that, do you have a specific approach that you take to a character when you do know that it is more intimate and a more of like a conversation based thing versus, something that you would have to do a bunch of prep work for group scenes or whatever it may be?
I was really enjoying the sort of intimate approach to this as opposed to what I've done before. A lot of my characters in the past I've done for films have been all physical and no verbal.
Mm.
I kind of broke out of a typecast that I had for many years, in which I played a lot of non-speaking but heavily featured inhuman characters. And getting to take a more, you know, person to person character role like this that is a lot more emotionally focused, it was a challenge for me that I'd been waiting for a long time, to strip all of those other elements away and just have a conversation. And thankfully, I got to have that with one of my best friends in the world. So I also get to enjoy, as I've said before, I have a lot of fun hating the people I love most on film because we really get to snipe at one another and really kind of enjoy that back and forth. But I think we found, like, we got complimented on set by people who were around us watching us, that the chemistry Abby and I have on set together, of having these back and forth conversations, feel very natural, they feel very quick, and having the rehearsal time that we had, that I'm very grateful for, because it's something very rarely offered to actors in the industry, meant that we managed to get off book early enough where after that it wasn't about the words, it was just about the emotions.
Mm.
And we were making discoveries even after, like, probably a year of rehearsals, like quite a long time rehearsals. We were making new discoveries right up until the end, and it became all the better for it than if we were to just have shot it like a week after reading the script.
Mm.
So that exploration for me was kind of a reminder of why I got into this field in the first place. I mean, this really did remind me of, like, yeah, these are the stories that I want to tell. This is the direction I want to go with my career. Are, even in a supernatural environment, which is my favorite place to work in. I love working in the supernatural. Almost every project of mine has some sort of supernatural element to it, and it's where I want to stay. It is finding those human elements and those emotional connections between the characters that keeps me grounded in it. And this was a perfect, kind of jumping off point of, like, yeah, this is the direction I want my career to go in. This is, these are the sort of relationships and the sort of character moments that I want to build off of.
Yeah, and you guys talked about how like a lot of this came from conversations you would have or like quote unquote bits with each other that like became part of the script. But it also is a movie that does have, I don't want to say darker themes because that feels dumb to say about a movie that is, about vampires. But you do have these more serious themes within this kind of supernatural, more fun film. Did you find the moments where you got to kind of go back to those little jokes with each other, or the things that you knew were like you as Abby and Morgana cathartic and like an escape, so then when you had the heavier conversations and the heavier scenes, you still could be like, well, I get to go back and talk to my best friend in the next scene, and that's what I have to remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be doing the film with you. That I remember there was there's one particular moment where I broke down crying because I accessed some feelings in my performance that I haven't accessed in a long time. It was really nice to like be on set with friends when that happened. Because you're right, there are moments where it does get very heavy, and like when you're an actor and you're running like a very heavy thing multiple times, it does build up inside you. So yeah, it was really nice to have that very friendly and loving working environment.
I think we both hit those moments, honestly.
Yeah.
Yours was on day 3, mine was on day 1,
Yeah.
in which,
It's all the drugs.
yeah, well, there you
It
go.
was like the not in pain day.
But yeah, I mean, I was the very first scene that we started with for me on day 1 was the one that was going to be the most emotional for me.
Mm.
I knew reading this scene, and it's like, oh, this is her dealing with a very deep traumatic moment from her life that at this
Mm.
point she thought she was past, and in this moment she realizes it's still very much there,
Yeah.
and it consumes her in this very heavy, explosive way, in which all of these feelings that she thought she had gotten rid of but were really just under the surface and deeply pressed down erupt out of her.
Mm.
And you know we we shot a few takes of that scene to get me there, but where we ended up at was very real, and it was an emotional state that I had only been in twice in my life before, and it wasn't acting, it was real. You know, I remember the sort of internal feelings that I was having in that moment were very real moments from my past. And that would have been a lot harder if I wasn't walking downstairs to people I trusted. You know, and it's kind of a blessing for this film that we challenged ourselves in a lot of ways, that being surrounded by this sort of safe, welcoming environment by people that we've worked with in the past, that we trust, who we have these real life connections with, meant that we had that structure to come out of it at the end of it and get back where we needed to. Because after that scene, I had to clean myself up and go back to the table, which I was not in that mental state anymore. So it was important that we can come back to, you know, being grounded.
Meant that as a writer, I like trusted you with that too, because that moment, that scene you're referring to is based on like a real moment from my life, which was like a very difficult time. I'm a survivor of an abusive relationship, as I've talked about before on Philosophy to You. So there are some parts of this film that are inspired by like real things that I went through. And so that moment where Faye is given this object that then comes to symbolize the abusive relationship and destroys it in a fit of passion, that's like a real thing that happened to me. So it was important to me that the actor who got that moment given to them was somebody who I like knew and loved and trusted. Like I the way I imagine writing is like there are like little pieces of my experience or my feelings or my life that I then give to a character. And maybe one day when I've finally given away all of the little pieces of me and experiences, maybe then I'll just kind of like disappear, right? I'll just like fade away into a book or something.
Yeah, then we create new trauma for you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Restart.
And so it was important to me that like that particular, you know, almost like the BFG, like I take a little glowing thing out of my ear and then I like give it to someone. It was important to me that the character I gave it to was somebody who I knew was going to be in the hands of someone I cared about and trusted.
And Abby and I have had these conversations before. You know, we do confide in each other. We talk every single day, and we've talked about a lot of our traumas together. You know, Abby's been there, you know, in conversations with me when I've been dealing with these things and when I've been going through it. And, you know, I think you knew giving me that. It's just like, yeah, you know this. You know what this is like. You know what it's like to have memories of somebody from your past who you have this very intense, toxic sort of, you know, trauma from. So,
and also we've had a lot of conversations where Morgana's been like, don't bite that person. Don't go after that person. They're not good for you. Don't do that. You don't want to do this. It's like relationship junk food. Don't do it. And I'm like, no, but that's so cute though.
there is a lot of, you know, we sometimes talk about how in certain ways we've swapped roles for sure. In certain ways, I'm definitely more Belle and she's definitely more Faye. But not in all cases. I think that honestly, both Belle and Faye in a lot of ways, thankfully not the most toxic ways, are kind of blends between the two of us.
I love that. Now you guys can do like, I don't know if you saw the Frankenstein with Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller where they would just switch roles. So now you guys can now you can do Dex and just switch roles and be like, now we have
talked about that.
We'd come back and do Dex the Second Bite and we'd just be the exact same film but we swapped.
Yeah.
As the other performances. On a lighter note, I have to ask, because I always ask this question to most of the time artists with tattoos, because I do think when we have tattoos, we think we're really cool. But then if you put a person who doesn't have tattoos and you give them a bunch of tattoos, you give them this cool look, it changes how they approach things. And you have, Abby, you have cool tattoos in this movie. And so I wanted to know for you both, when you were in those costumes and you kind of were sitting down for the first time and like looked as your character, how did it help you guys get into their mindsets more, like when you had the complete picture?
That was a big moment, honestly, for both of us once our costume stylist like actually got us fully outfitted, because it said so much about the characters. For me, you know, I would say that I dress more like Belle, honestly, more often than Faye. But placing that Faye in the costume that she was wearing, I was just very maturely. It was definitely like, it was very chic, it was very stylish, but it was very mature compared to Belle's character, which really helped build the dynamic visually between us. Because, you know, Faye is much older than Belle. She's been around much longer. She's been through this already. It was 100 years of a toxic relationship between her and Dee Dee before she got out of it. So Faye presenting herself as very put together, very stylish, said a little bit about her past and where she's been with Dee Dee before, really helped carry me in a different way. It kind of adjusted my posture. It adjusted how I look at Belle. I looked at Belle definitely more like a child than an equal, and I think that that played off of our dynamic in this very major way.
Yeah, costume is a huge part of my process as an actor because I use a lot of psychophysical techniques. I use a lot of like body first techniques. So in particular, a character's shoes tells me so much about them. Like literally the way they make contact with the earth is so important. So Belle's enormous shoes were a really important part of the process for me, and like I practiced a lot in them to understand how she would move and how she would pose. And it really gels well with all the kind of like I use a lot of Laban technique and a lot of Michael Chekhov technique if you want to get into the weeds. But so yeah, the costumes that like affect the way she moves, even down to like her bra, like the bra that I was wearing in the film for Belle is a what is it, Victoria's Secret what?
Like a double bombshell
Double
bra.
bombshell bra.
Like
That's it. Like she
Robin's
really
bra,
had like
yeah.
the girls are girling for Belle in that film. So it, like that all affects like the way she moves, the way she sits and stuff. It informs all the kind of animal studies and things that I do, even down to things like her nails, like the way that she gestures, the way that she picks something up or like swipes something, or the way she like poses with them. So yeah, the costume like really helps me. I really get into it with the character's body language. It's a really important part of my process.
I think that was really interesting for you as well, that we discussed who dressed them. Faye very much was somebody who dressed themselves, who decided on this outfit for them, that this reflects them and their personality. Sorry, we're in downtown LA right now, so sirens of plenty.
It's fun.
She very much dressed herself for this occasion. This is somebody who's like rediscovering their identity versus Belle, who is somebody very clearly not dressed by herself,
Belle
but
was dressed by Dee Dee, and that's part of how we get to know about Dee Dee during the film. It's a very deliberate choice that we don't ever see him, but his presence is made known, and the audience feels his presence through things like the costume and the music and like the gift and so on, so, without spoiling anything.
When I always like asking those questions because I studied theater, and I'm always like, it's interesting to see how other actors kind of like figure out where they want their characters to go. I do want to ask you, Abby, because when I was on set, you said if this went into something bigger, you had an idea for who you wanted to eventually play Dee Dee if we saw Dee Dee. Has that changed, or do you still have the same idea in mind?
No, absolutely. I have the same actor in mind. I probably shouldn't say who it is. But
They're
there
just
is an actor
silently manifesting it.
Yeah. If Dex ever goes on to be anything else, then I know exactly who I want to play Dee Dee. It's an actor who I've worked with before who has incredible energy. It's a name that people won't expect. They'll be like, what, this guy? Really? Him? And like, yes, that is exactly the point of Dee Dee.
And now everyone's gonna go on the internet and be like, okay, so who has Abigail worked with? And
let the theorizing begin. I mean, look, I think that, we have a lot of fun talking about where these characters can go after the end of the film. But also, as far as the character exploration for us, I think regardless of whether or not we do these projects and it expands beyond there, it really does help us get a grip of the characters in a larger way to talk about what if we did a sequel? What if we did a prequel? Some of the character exploration things that we went through before with Valentina explored how these characters were when they first met. Whether or not we'll ever see that translated to film, who knows? That would be amazing. But it helped build our dynamic to at least imagine what that would be like. Who was my character when she first met Dee Dee? Because that, if she's 133 years old, then that goes back a long way. Like, where did they meet? Who was she then? How was her early relationship with Dee Dee different or the same as Belle's? And all those questions really just helped keep us in the moment. It's a very intimate scene between two characters at a table, but knowing all of that internally, knowing all of that, coming into the scene, definitely helped paint a larger picture, a more vibrant picture of what Faye and Belle's relationship with one another is.
Yeah. And I want to ask real quick about Valentina, because it was so cool seeing how quick those takes went. it would be like, okay, we did 5 takes, we're good, I have it. And like it would just move on, move on, move on. When you guys are in the mindset of like, okay, well, like because I know how actors think, you're like, I actually wanted to try and change this thing. I didn't like that I said it that way, all that kind of stuff. Does having a director who is very much like, no, it's good, let's go, help you guys in stopping that kind of second voice from telling you that something was bad when it wasn't?
It helps. I would say that we're not perfect and we'll still second guess it because we're actresses and that's how it works. But we've had this discussion with ourselves, each other before where, actors always second guess themselves. And I think we're always going to look at something and be like, I would have done this differently. We're always works in progress. However, trusting your director is paramount to getting through a production. I have a tremendous respect for Valentina and her vision. So to me, it's like, okay, I don't need to trust whether or not like I felt the performance was good enough because Valentina with her direction, like she is the vision who is seeing this film take place.
Yeah.
I have to trust that she got what she needed. At no point did we feel like we were rushed for time where it's like, oh, we would have got another shot if we only had the time. Like we got, we made our day, we got the shots we needed. And that was all based on Valentina being like, got what I needed. I'm taking all the pieces so that she can sit with the editor and place them all together. So those insecurities will always be there. Like I definitely have them about every project I've been in, feeling like if I would have had one more take, having seen it now, how would I have done this, or how would I have done it differently? But trusting the director in the moment is so key and so important because that is, at the end, the eyes in which the film is being seen through.
Yeah, I mean, I yes, as you hit the nail on the head with regards to trusting director. Like we're all here to serve the text. I have 3 criteria that I always judge my own acting performances by, and if I tick those 3 boxes, then like whether it's great or bad, whether it's 4 lines or 400, I walk away and I'm fine. And that's, have I done my character prep? Am I listening to my fellow actors? And are my choices serving the text? And if at the end of the day I can say, yeah, ticked all 3 boxes, then like maybe I did a terrible job. Maybe I was rubbish in the scene. But if I tick those 3 boxes, I'm like, okay, I'm the acting department. It's not, now I trust like the lighting, the makeup, the director, the music, the editors. It's over to them and they'll assemble the magic. I've done my little piece of it. So as you say, it's about trusting the director and also like trusting everybody on the set.
Yeah, and for our last question, I want to ask, because it is exciting that it is, coming out on Nebula. You guys are having the premiere. All these people are now going to get to see Dex. What for you both is the most exciting part about audiences getting to dive into this movie?
I think for me, this is the first film that I'm having this much of a lead role in alongside Abby. It's showing off a type of acting performance that I haven't gotten to show off before. It's where this whole project started, was us lamenting that, we're waiting for this project. We're waiting for somebody to pass this on to us. We're waiting to get this call from producer, casting director, get that audition, nail that audition. This is finally, like, by design, the right step in the right direction for both of us as far as where we want our careers to go. I've been in the horror genre for years. This is definitely not my first foray into it, but this is the first time I've been in the genre playing the sort of role that I want to be reflected in the rest of my career. And it is the first step towards that. And seeing the excitement from both of our audiences, like kind of across the board, of them being excited to see us in a project like this and carry on with us. We have the audience already. We don't need to convince our audience to come see it. They're excited about seeing this film. But I think from their perspective, because they knew how it started, that this is the beginning of a path for both of us that we have kind of forced the direction on. So yeah, I'm excited to see how it develops from here. That this is kind of just the beginning of what we've designed this film to be, which is a major stepping off point for where we want to go in our careers.
Yeah, the career stuff's definitely exciting. I think I'm most excited for audiences to connect with it like on an artistic and emotional level, and to say, oh, that made me feel something, or that made me think something. Or the moments that I most love as an artist are when somebody says, oh, something you made has enabled me to unlock something in my life. Maybe it's have a conversation with a relative, maybe it's have a conversation with yourself, maybe it's put something in context that happened to you a long time ago. So I think those moments are really beautiful because there's always a quote. There's a quote from the History Boys that I remember a play I was in years and years ago, where somebody says, Hector, I'm paraphrasing, says, when you read a book, it's like a hand has come out and
Mhm.
taken yours. And when you're an artist, you're a hand in the book. And it's so lovely to kind of like put the hand out there. And then when an audience member comes and grasps it, and it's like, I understood that. There was a moment when we wrapped at the end of day 3, when somebody came up to me, I won't say who, in the crew, and said, hey, I was in an abusive relationship, and like this film has made me feel seen and made me feel like healed in a way. And that was a really beautiful moment. Like to be the hand in the book, it's a privilege.
I received that on set as well. I mean,
Mm.
the first day after that big emotional scene we had talked about, there were several people who said they loved the performance but found it extremely difficult to watch me do it
Mm.
because it felt very real for them. I could
Mm.
tell just by speaking with them, it's like, oh, you have a DD.
Mm.
I think a lot of us have a DD. A lot of
Yeah.
us have somebody from our past who might be the only person from our past who can drive us to that point,
Mm.
or somebody who represents possibly a life that they've gotten away from. And I think that Faye is an imperfect character, but also an inspirational one in the sense that she is doing her best to get away from this toxic abuse cycle. And while in the film, she does her best and might trip up in her road to recovery, because a road to recovery is not a perfectly stable road. Um, she is doing her best to take her life back. And I think people seeing that imperfect road and seeing that you continue on that road and you persevere despite the bumps that can come along with it will be more inspiring than just seeing a character who had a perfect steady road the entire time and just like, I've decided to change my life and now it's perfect. She's a work in progress, and I really appreciate being given a character like that in which I can find those layers.
Yeah, and I can't wait for everyone to get to see it. Thank you guys so much for talking with me today. And I'm just so excited.